Hey, my name is Yvette Myers. I'm gonna drop the B today. Decided to do a little different, something a little different, and come to you speaking from my live video and to give this presentation this way. I've been doing it for PowerPoint for quite a few months now, and I decided to change up a little bit. Today we're talking about when the gap in our differences begins to overpower our love. Now, what exactly do that mean? That means that here is me, here is him, here is you, here's your significant other. And when you first meet, those differences are either overlooked, they are ignored, or they don't matter. However, after the honeymoon stage, after things start going on, there comes a time when the differences, what the things that you guys don't have in common, they become they surface. They get to the top of the relationship. They become so overpowering, and the love, what you guys started with, that kind of sweet seeps to the bottom. Now, it's my opinion that those two things, the love and the differences, are the same size from the continuation of the relationship from day one until the last day that the relationship, or if the relationship ends. It is my opinion that those differences and love are the same size. What happens is we start focusing on different things throughout our relationships. Things in our relationships take on different meanings. For instance, when you're a young couple, and you're coming together, you love each other, everything is good, and that's I love him, he loves me, I love you, you love me, and that's the only thing that matters. Then as you grow in a couple, you take on more responsibility. Children may come into play, mortgage may come into play, parents may come into play, friends, families, co-workers, everything starts to come into play. It has a greater, uh, what word am I looking for? It has a bigger voice, because in the beginning of the relationship, none of those things had a voice. None of those things mattered. All those things were small, insignificant. The only thing that mattered was that I love you and you love me. And then as life goes on, those things get a bigger voice. Then I love you and you love me kind of shifts down. It kind of dwindles. And as it goes down, let me turn my phone off, y'all. I'm sorry. As it goes down, as the love takes a second seat, a third seat, a fourth seat, or a fifth seat, anytime we are not focused on the thing that's the most important to us, things that are not that important become important. And then the things that are important kind of get shifted to the side. You hear stories quite often of one spouse working long hours, or working from sun up to sundown, and then the other spouse at the home taking care of the family. And then the children grow up, and once the children grow up, the two kind of dwindle or separate or go their separate ways, because the children were the source, were the middle, were the stuffing to the relationship. And once the children were gone, now you had two sides of an Oreo cookie that didn't have anything to connect them, or they forgot what connected them. So the differences in our gap, the gap in our differences begin to, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but this is what I'm going to talk about. The gap in our differences, um, they're the same size, but our focus, we start to focus on different things. And once we start to focus on different things, the things that really matter to us get shifted down and down and down and down until they're so far down that trying to get someone to start to look at what's going on in the relationship, sometimes it comes to a point of no return. Sometimes it comes to a point of this relationship can't be helped. But if both parties are in the mindset that they want to resolve the relationship, they do not want to just resolve or absolve the relationship. If they don't want to, I think I'm using the wrong word, but just go with me. If they don't want the relationship to end, then once both parties agree to that, I thought I turned this off. Once both parties agree to that, it's not that difficult. It's not that difficult to get to a point where you can stand each other again. It's not. So let's start by giving a definition of love. Every time I ask this question, um, I've never been able to get two people to agree to what the definition, what love means. I've never been, and I kind of think that's kind of good because in everybody's experiences, in everybody's life, they have their own specific definition of love. And it means different things to different people. So, because it means different things to different people, if we don't discuss what love means to us, and we enter a relationship with our own idea of what love is, and we never ever discuss, when I think of love, this is my definition, and the other person has their own. Very few people actually do that because I've asked many couples. I was like, what define love? And you define love. And sometimes I get two totally different different definitions. Now, if something as simple as a definition is actually, as hasn't been hashed out. If something as simple as what does it mean? And we cannot go under the assumption that everybody knows what love is. If you grow up in a home where everybody hugged and everybody kissed and everybody, there was a pat on the back when you did an attaboys and accolades and affirmations. If you grow up in a home where that was the norm, then your mind, you can think that you can come to the conclusion that love is taking care of people, affirming them, supporting them. If you grow up in a home where there was abuse, and I'm using these two drastic differences because I want to make my point clearer. If you grow up in a home where there was a lot of verbal, physical, mental, emotional abuse, your definition of love could be just don't hit me, just don't talk down to me. Now look at those two definitions. One is affirmations and one is one affirmation and one is just don't physically, mentally, emotionally cause me harm. Now you have one person that needs affirmation and the other person, and then these two people somehow in some parts of the society or life, they end up together. It's like, how in the world did you two, with your completely different definition, they end up together? And when they first get together, they never talk about what does love mean to each of them. And because they never discuss it, it becomes a problem on and on. And actually, as they grow on and further and further in their relationship, they kind of learn to adapt around each other's needs. And until one of them come into the knowledge or come into an understanding of the five love languages, I encourage you to get that book, or to come into their own self to understand or to educate themselves on how their partner is loved and how their partner expresses love. You can go 10, 15 years until somebody finally says, this is enough. I can't do this anymore. And out of if you go back and if you peel through everything, if you peel through all the things that they've gone through, and you get back to the core of the foundation of the problem, you can see clearly there's a difference in the definition and how one expect to receive love and the other one expect to receive love. So when the gap in the differences overpowers the love, the gap is only coming to the surface. The love is still there. It comes to the surface, up, 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 up. And then once it get to a point where people's lives begin to boil over, it starts to get to the point where I can't take this anymore. I need to get out of the relationship. And many times, the statistic says that over 48, I believe the last number that I read, of marriages end in divorce, 48%. That's a lot. And the lifespan of a marriage is probably last thing I read was 6 to 8 years. That's enough time for us to understand that after all the issues have come to surface, what are we holding on to? What are we getting to the point of? That's when things starts to boil. Now, let's talk about this one. Now we talked about defining love. Let's talk about what does it mean, which is two totally different things. Defining something and understanding what it means to you or what it means to your partner can be the difference in maintaining and your relationship continuing and your relationship ending. What does love mean to you? We defined it in the relationship in the past. And I didn't give a clear definition because I don't want my definition to be your definition. Because if I were to give a definition, and it reminded me of my children when I thought of this. When my children were growing up, my youngest child is 25. But when my children were growing up, I used to ask them, do they love me? And they would say yes. It's like, do you love me? And they say yes. And I said, why? And then they would say, I think I've told this story before, but they would say, because you cook for us, you clean for us, you take care of the house, and this and this. And then I asked the question, what if I stopped doing those things? Would you still love me? They say, yeah. I say, because anytime and this is my definition, anytime there is anything after the word because, it becomes contingent on that. For instance, I love you because you take care of me. What if I stopped taking care of you? What if I had an issue where something happened to me and I could no longer take care of you? Would you still love me? So I never told them this, but my children got to the point where they would say, when I would say, do you love me? And I would say, why? And they would say, because, period. They would actually say the period. They would say, because, period. I love you because, period. Because anytime anything comes after because, it becomes contingent on what comes after it. So, what does love mean to you? I wrote something down and I'm going to attempt to read it. My eyes are getting smaller as I get older, so bear with me. It is necessary to define the definition so that we all will know what it isn't. Life presents that if you love someone, or if you say that you love someone, that the things that they subject you to, that if you endure them, that you somehow prove your love to them. If I subject you to infidelity or physical abuse or being mean, talking down, if I subject you to those things and you still my ride or die, you still hang in there, that somehow that proves that you love them. I question that. So many of us already know, or so many of us believe, and we have it rooted in our spirit that pain is not synonymous with pain. Love and pain are not synonymous. They are not two things that have to cohabitate in order to be in a relationship. They aren't. So when it goes back to our growing up. We saw things in our lives that were said and done. And just sometimes it can just be one thing. One little thing can happen and it can change how we view life. True story. It's off the subject a bit, excuse me, but it's relevant. My cousin and I were catching a bus in Miami, Florida. We were on 183rd Street, 27th Avenue. So we were catching a bus and we were headed back to my house. As we were sitting there under the tree, it was a tree there at the time. As we were sitting there, as there was a stoop also, 22nd Avenue, I'm sorry, not 27th. There was a stoop there. And a gentleman walked up to us. It was an older man, and he was disheveled. He was He looked homeless. As he approached, his odor met my nose before he did. And I do not have a poker face, so I frowned. And my cousin sat there and she didn't move. And so as he's walking up to us, my face said everything that my words didn't. And he looked me over and he looked at me. And then he walked over to my cousin and he said, went in his pocket and he gave her $20. And he said, I was coming up here, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember his exact verbiage, but he said, I was coming up here to give you ladies something, but the way you looked at me made me think that you thought you were better than me. And I'm gonna give your sister this. He thought we were sisters, and don't share it with her. She didn't share. But that one time, that one instant, that one situation, I was about 12, 13 years old. I'm long past 12, 13 years old now. But that one situation changed how I looked at people that were less fortunate. It changed everything about my life. And I remember that one instant. It wasn't about the money. It was about the fact that I don't know what I was thinking at the time. I don't know if I was looking down on him, but that I do remember that he smelled. And that one instant changed everything about how I look at people, how I speak to everyone, how I address everyone in the room, how when I'm passing through a situation or a corridor, everyone gets my attention. If I don't speak to anybody, then I don't speak to anybody. I likely have a lot on my mind. But if I speak to one person, I'm going to speak to everybody. That situation. So one particular situation in our lives, just that one incident, and it lasts less than 3 minutes. But it had an impact on the rest of my life. So I said that to say, one instance or one interaction that you can witness as a child can have an impact or stamp your mind as to how situations or love is supposed to be demonstrated. And that can either give you a good outlook or a positive outlook or a negative outlook. And it can change your life. And now I ask you, what does love mean to you? And what situation or incident or what idea or what thing happened in your life that gave you a clear definition of what it means to you, and you've held on to that thing and you've rode with it. Now, if it's a positive interaction, then I say continue to ride with it. But if it has brought you negative situations and negative outcomes, then consider revamping that. Consider abandoning it if it has not been a positive outcome for your life. Consider changing everything about it. And it's not difficult. All it takes is a willing mind. So I answer that question to yourself and ask your partner, what does it mean to you? And then listen and adjust. Now let's talk about successful relationships and choice theory. I'm going to read again. Like I said, my eyes are getting small. That's what I say when I need my reading glasses. According to choice theory, successful relationships, let's talk about that first. We need successful relationships in our lives to be successful. And I think the term successful relationships is lost in the definition. So let me tell you what I mean when I say successful relationships. I am getting to the point, and I still find myself saying it occasionally, but I'm getting to the point where I use the term good and bad it's my goal to stop using those terms completely, because good and bad are subjective. Good and bad are subjective. It depends on the situation, and it depends on how, what's happening and all of those other elements of definitions. I want to get to the point where I completely use positive and negative relationships. Positive and negative relationships are just that. Positive adds value to your life, and negative takes away value from your life. We have to get to the point where we can identify successful, positive relationships. Now, for the sake of this video, this workshop, successful and positive are synonymous. So, how many, I'm going to ask you rhetorically, how many successful relationships can you identify in your life? How many relationships that you can look at and they're positive? If you have a lot, then that's a good foundation. It's likely, it can be said that you'll likely move forward in a positive relationship if you put in the work that creates positivity. If there are countless of negative relationships in your life, then finding something positive or finding a relationship that's positive might be problematic. Now, I don't usually use TV as an example, and I actually, this is the first time that I've ever done it because I stray away from it because it's just fictitious. Now, if the only positive relationship in your life is something that you see on TV, many people will tell you not to use that as an example because it's not real. Now, let me tell you what you can do. Though that relationship may not be real, what you see and how they interact is real. Now, the first positive relationship that I've ever witnessed, in my life between a husband and wife was the Cosby Show. That was the first positive relationship. Now, and I'm not talking about, and I just want to use this to throw out this disclaimer. I'm not talking about his real life. I'm not talking about what happened. That's not what I'm talking about. Stay focused. The focus is the first positive interaction of a male and a female, or a couple that I saw in my life was the Cosby Show. And I remember how he respected her. He supported her. He encouraged her. There were no harsh words. There were no, rolling of the eyes in ill intent when she spoke. There were rolling of the eyes throughout the show, but with ill intent. But you can see that. You can see it through the TV, or you can see in my eyes saw a positive relationship. And I use that as an example, throughout my life to try to mimic what I saw, not the actual relationship. Positivity, encouraging, love, support, stand up for, that's what I'm talking about. So just for this sake of conversation, like I said, I don't use TV for an example, but look at something. If you can't identify anything in your real life, look at a relationship and your interpretation of how that relationship is. When I hear someone say relationship goals and then others say, well, you don't know what they're going through or what they're doing. And, everybody want relationship goals. They look at a couple and they say relationship goals, but they don't understand what it goes on behind the relationship. Whatever your mind is interpreting as how that relationship is going, then I encourage you to hold on to that, to mimic what you believe, what happens in that relationship. Now, if you find out that, behind closed doors, there's other things that are going on, don't throw away what you believed at the time, because you can still build on what you believed. And what we build whole not universes. We build neighborhoods, and the United States was built on a belief. So, getting away from being tormented because of Christianity. Now, I'm not going to go into history, but it was like, if we go here, we can build our own system. And I encourage you to read, to continue to watch other workshops, to go to other situations or other things so that you can become aware, educate yourself so that you can see other things. And once you see other things, now you can start to build on how, even if you never saw it in your life, you can still have a relationship, or you can still build a relationship with your significant other that's positive, that adds value to your life. Now let's talk about choice theory. There are 4 relationships in our life that we mimic throughout our lives. And I'm going to read these from my paper. It's the husband-wife relationship, the parent-child relationship, the teacher-student relationship, and the manager-worker relationship. Now, the manager-worker relationship happens later on in life, but I bet you all that you can remember your first manager. And then you can remember all your what we would consider bad or negative managers and your positive managers. We remember those people. So it is our witnessing these interacting inside. Wait, let me read this first. Witnessing these interactions, being a part of these, is what prepares us for our relationships. It prepares us. Remember the situation I told you about a couple of slides back, or last slide, about the older man. Now that happened, and it was less than 3 to 5 minutes of my life, but it changed my life forever. You can witness a relationship, or a manager employee, husband, wife, and it can alter the rest of your life. Now I ask you to go back into your life and see what situation changed your life. If it was a positive, embrace it. If it wasn't, then reconsider it. Reconsider what you've built your relationships on. Now, after I've said all of that, let's bring this together. The gap in our differences conclusion. It's likely that when we meet someone, we are who we are. We have learned to accept people at different times and different stages of our relationship. Some stages we can accept them for exactly who they are, and there is no, they are who they are. That's my boo. That's my baby. I support my baby. Then there are times when it's not so much. The goal is, in my opinion, is to identify those times when it's not so much, because at those are the critical moments in our lives. Those are going to be the times when the differences are going to start to surface. And if they surface and they stay above ground too long, they can overpower the relationship. The differences that we have when we meet are there until we separate. They're always there. They don't come out of the blue. They aren't born. They've been always there, but we've chosen not to address them or look at them, or to let them have any significant role in our relationships. When they get to the point where they have a significant role in our relationship, in my opinion, that's at that point, love has dropped a couple of notches. What we mean to each other has dropped a couple of notches. And now we have to get back to the point where what we have and what we want to build and how we want to be together. If it's a deal breaker, I consider deal breakers, and it's just my opinion, any form of violence. No one should have to live in turmoil. If it's physical, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, then that's a deal breaker. But I want to encourage you to find those differences, identify them, talk about them, so that once you expose darkness, it's no longer darkness. Now it's light. So we've talked about that, and we're going to move on. We're going to grow forward. We're going to move, and we're going to develop. And this is not going to be an issue for us, because if you never ever talk about it, it's not an if, it's a when they surface, and when they become bigger than what we're dealing with. And when either we're going to talk about it, or I'm going to end up killing you, or you're going to kill me. Please don't get to that point. So when we meet someone, the gaps in our differences are just as present then as they are 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. They only begin to surface when we stop focusing on why we're together, what we want to do together, how we want to attack this world together. Because we all need a partner. We all need someone in our corner. I encourage you to visit the other workshops, to email me, call me if you have questions or comments. I'm going to post this on my YouTube channel and on the group forum. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach me. The next slide will be my contact information. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and have a blessed day.